There's a lot of creators out there who want to create something cool, new, and awesome, whether it be a fantasy novel, or a Dungeons & Dragons campaign, or a sci-fi multi-series part, whatever you have that you want to create. But a lot of those creations and ideas that are up here in your head stem from other people's creations and ideas. And then we get to the part where a lot of people worry about copying what's already been done, or even going so far as outright plagiarizing. And I'm here to tell you that that's okay, because not everything you create has to be, or even should be, original. You don't need to create an entire new magic system for your world that has nothing familiar that no one's ever seen before. You don't have to come up with an entire new race of things and creatures and people that share no similarities to anything anyone's ever heard of. You don't need to try and reinvent the wheel if the wheel already works very well in your own creation. The truth of the matter is that you shouldn't reinvent the wheel. You shouldn't come up with all these crazy new things that you are sure that no one's ever heard of before. It's too much work for you, and it undoubtedly will just become a hindrance onto you rather than a benefit. Now, this by no means means that you can't make anything original or create anything new at all, and that's not what I'm saying. You absolutely should strive to create something new, but you shouldn't try to make every single bit of your story new. J.R.R. Tolkien is one of the key biggest authors when it comes to fantasy, and almost every single fantasy book or story written or created after The Lord of the Rings shares similarities or tropes from The Lord of the Rings. And that is not a bad thing. If anything, it's a good thing, because people already know in their head, when you think of an elf, you think of this. When you think of an orc, you think of this. When you think of a halfling or a hobbit, you think of this. And if someone was out there trying to recreate what elves, hobbits, orcs, and what have you look like, you can do it, sure, but a lot of people who are well-versed in fantasy will automatically think of the J.R.R. Tolkien set of those things. And that is not a bad thing. It just happens to be the way things are. It is also not a bad thing if you want to try and reinvent them. If you want to create a race of people that are huge and wide and short and stout, and they have like square looking ears and really misshaped looking mouths and whatnot, and you want to kill all those elves, go for it. It's your story, it's your creation, do what you wish. But just be aware that when you then try to share that story and you call it an elf, a vast majority of people are not going to associate your race with what they commonly know as elves. So while sharing a lot of common traits and familiarities with other creations and authors is not a bad thing, it is inherently a good thing, it doesn't mean, like I mentioned earlier, you should always copy what other people have done. You should try to put your own narrative spin, your own originality into it, so it does still feel like your creation. A perfect example of that is my current homebrew campaign for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I ran a lot of pre-written campaigns made by Wizards of the Coast before I dove into the idea of creating my own story and creating my own campaign. I wanted to get the idea of how a story actually works, how to run a proper campaign, and get all of that out, and also get some inspiration and some ideas for my own story before immediately starting out on my own. And of course, when I started writing my own homebrew campaign, I wanted it to be original. I wanted it to be unique and different to any other campaign out there for Dungeons & Dragons. I wanted my players to see new things, to experience new things, to fight different monsters, and get away from all the regular stuff that is constant throughout every D&D campaign. And I still want to do that. However, in writing my homebrew campaign, I borrowed and somewhat stole a lot of different things from a lot of different creations because I loved them so much. And I either wanted to take that idea and put my own spin on it, or just blatantly take it and put that into my world because I loved it so much. And that's not a bad thing. It is a bad thing if you are intending to do this kind of thing for profit. For example, if I was to be live streaming this campaign on YouTube or Twitch or something else like that, and I was making a profit off it via donations or what have you, then you run into copyright territories. And then you kind of have to do everything as original as you can be, or at least the things you are borrowing from or taking inspiration from, put enough of your own twist on it that you can abide by those rules. But if it's your own homebrew campaign that's just happening in your kitchen with your friends, nobody cares. Do what you want as long as you and your players are having fun. Now, while I still try and stay as homebrew and original as I can with my story and its narrative and the creatures and characters, a lot of things have been borrowed or outright just taken from that universe and put into mine. Here is an example of all the different works that I have pulled from and either changed a little bit or blatantly just pulled and put into my world because I loved them so much. I have at least one thing from all of these different types of works in my world. And my players know I do. I have one of my players who will sit at the table, and the moment I start to mention or describe something that he recognizes, he will sit across the table and he will go squinty-eyed and stare at me like he knows exactly what this is. However, he may know what this is, but he still is excited to play because he's just as excited that this is now involved in this world as I am. Or maybe he's not as excited because it's a really bad thing, but he trusts me enough as a dungeon master to make it fun and exciting for the players. He doesn't sit there staring at me like, you stole this, you plagiarized this. Quite the opposite. He sees that I took an idea that I really liked and I'm putting my own twist on it, or I'm putting it into this world because I really want to use it. And that is not a bad thing. If anything, I encourage you. If you are creating your own works, if you're writing a book, if you're wanting to make a web series, if you're creating your own campaign for Dungeons & Dragons or Pathfinder or what have you, I encourage you to go through the things you love. Lord of the Rings, fantasy books, read your favorite fantasy novels, watch your favorite fantasy TV shows, watch, enjoy, and consume the things you love, and take ideas from them and put them into your own works. Try to keep your own spin on it and make it so it feels like yours, but by no means try and do everything yourself. Do not try to be original across the board. It is too much work, and you will undoubtedly create a negative instead of a positive in trying to do that. And even though you're pulling from all these different works and you're creating your own story, your own thing, at the end of the day, if you can still sit there and say that you are proud of it and you feel good about this thing that you have created, even with inspiration from others, it's still your thing and you are proud of it, then I am proud of you. And I wish you the best in your works going forward. What are some other ideas that you have pulled from in your own works? What are some fantasy or sci-fi things that you enjoy that you pull inspiration from? I'd love to hear about them in the comment section down below. If you want to see more of me, you can always check out my Twitch streams. I stream a couple of times a week. And thank you very much to my Twitch subscribers and my Patreons for helping me try to make this stream a reality. You guys mean a lot to me, and I thank you very, very much. If you enjoyed this, be sure to tell your friends. If you didn't, you tell me. Have yourself a good one, everybody. Skål.